All right, so we'll get started on the new features in version 38. We're going to go right to a new file here. You can see it's all the same CAD user interface, so you're not learning anything really new in terms of drawing 2D, 3D modeling. That's all staying the same, so you don't have to have any sort of learning curve. I know I started with version 29, but then from version 30 to 31, we have this new layout. I think it's much easier to navigate, but if it's a new program like that, sometimes it takes some time to get used to. It's the same layout for the CAD interface here. And I'm going to go right to drawing a square, going to rectangle. And you can see up at the top here, my data entry window. I'm typing in my length and width. And you can see up at the top, we've got this save icon. This has been requested by many customers, I think including myself, to save CAD defaults. So this CAD defaults option that we have now will allow us to save default settings in every CAD function. So if I go into Arc and I'm typing in a diameter all the time of 1/4 inch because I'm drilling 1/4 inch, put on my number lock here, typing in a 1/4 inch diameter all the time here, I can just save that as a default setting. So when I close out of BobCAD version 38 and reopen it, it'll still retain those settings for me in all of my CAD functions. So when I go back into Arc, it'll have 1/4 inch for the diameter. If I go to the shape library, and I'm very frequently doing this bolt hole pattern, I can select these dimensions and then I can save the settings here for next time. That one's very simple to explain, but it's a huge improvement, I think, to save all of your CAD settings and create 2D, create 3D. If we're usually setting a specific distance that we're extruding out, we can save that as a default setting for next time. With those CAD defaults, that's included in the migration tool. So we'll take a look at that next. When I go to the top and go to File, and go to migration. This is a newer option, so if you're not familiar with it, we'll go over that as well. When we go to migration, we have a couple different options here. You can migrate all of your settings from version 37 or an older version that you have. So if you've got your post-processor, machine file, tool library, if you've set up all of your tools that you normally use, material library, your CAD default settings that we just looked at, that's all included in here. You can save all of these settings and open version 38 and import those settings from version 37 into the new version. You can also export these settings and migrate them over to a new computer. So let's say this is your computer at the shop and you've got a laptop you want to use at home. You can go here to the top and go to Export Migration File. You would click on this 3-button icon and save it onto your flash drive. And it's a zip file that you're saving. So this file name is migration.zip. You save that onto a flash drive, plug it into your other computer, and then you go to the same migration page on the new computer, and then simply go to Import Migration File. Find it on your flash drive, and then it imports, again, your post-processor, machine file, tool library, material library, all of those settings that you have from one computer to another. You don't have to recreate your tool library or try to find that tool file in the background of your computer. You can just simply do it in the software program now. All right, and again, in the comments section, if you have any questions, let me know as we go through these top 10 new features in version 38. Those were the first two, and then number 3, we're still in the CAD functionality. We have this option for component library. I've got these all written down here to remind myself. Okay, so in CAD, component library would be if I have this part file that you see on the loading screen all the time that I have pulled up. We can save this vise for next time, for a new file. Any kind of CAD geometry, maybe a border for a print, you can save in this component library, and that's found in the Home tab. Right next to your selection mask over here to the right, you've got load component and save component. So first we would go to save component. I type in my component name. I'm just going to type in vise, and I'm going to select the geometry of my vise here and hit save to file. You can see I'm still learning this one, but you click on save to file, click save. It's somewhere back in the C drive of your computer in this subfolder here. When you hit save to file, then it's saved. You could name it whatever. I just named it as Vice. You can go to a new file. And let's say you've got a part file in here that you want to load in the fixture into this file as well. You go to Home, go to Load Component, and Load File. And then you load that file in. You can place it wherever you want inside of here, so you can sort of create template part files like this vise that you can load into every one of your part files, sort of like creating an assembly here, right? And then you can translate it over, select where you want the origin point to be at, and then click OK. And then it imports that part file with all the multiple solids in here. Then you can go in and you can translate the jaws over, right, so that you can have it touching right exactly at that location and sort of mess around with it like that. So move it over so that it's holding on to it, and be able to, again, import CAD files into your existing file very easily. It also helps with cutting down on file size as well, so that you don't have to have this part file saved in a folder on your computer and all of these different part files saved. It's just saved in the background of the software program, basically. All right, so those are the big ones with CAD. We're getting into the CAM functionality next for the new features in version 38. Next in CAM, we have the new built-in CAM wizard. So as I mentioned, the layout, the user interface in all the CAD functions, they're all going to stay the same. When I get to CAM, I'm going to go into my part file here that we're working on. I'm going to go to the top and go to CAM, start a new job. And this workflow is going to be the same, right? You're selecting your job type, your milling machine, go into the stock wizard where you define your workpiece, you define your stock from there, and then define your your machine setup, which is going to be your G54 work offset on a corner like this, wherever you're touching off your tools or using a probe to touch off at the machine. And then we click OK. Now, when we get into all of our milling operations, you'll see the layout differently, which is our new built-in CAM wizard. It's not going to be in a separate window as before. It's going to be built into the software program right in the data entry window here. So when I right-click on Machine Setup 1, we go to Mill 3-axis for the 3-axis roughing here. And you'll see this window show up. It's, again, sort of on the side here, so you're still seeing your part file. You're seeing what you're trying to machine. I think it's a lot easier to work with this way. You select your solid model, right? You're still selecting your boundary that you're containing the toolpath inside of. And then once you click OK, then you have all of the pages that you can hit next right here. And you also have this drop down that you can go to your machining strategy page automatically, select the operations that you want to use in this 3-axis milling operation. So you can see it's laid out a little bit differently. It's the same workflow, but I think it's easier to be able to program on the left-hand side here or wherever you want to move your data entry window, right? If you've got a second monitor, you can move this window over to a second screen and have a lot more to work with looking at your part file and seeing what you need to machine there. So that's going to be the biggest difference in version 38 is setting up the CAM wizard here, pins to the side of your software program. And, if I go into an advanced roughing, add that in, sort the milling operations down at the bottom here. And then when I go to my next page, everything updates where I can go to my tool category. We've got our tool crib and our tool library as before here. And then we have all of the same options, our cut pattern, parameters, depth of cut, step over for the roughing, lead in, lead out, and all those options as before. So again, same workflow as before, all of these same pages, gouge check, advanced feed rates, MDI, they're all going to be here built into the software program itself instead of in a separate window now. Also, we have the contextual help, just like in CAD, down at the bottom here. If I'm going into a CAD function and I don't know what the positive direction means, or maybe I don't know what draft angle means, I can click on it, highlight it, and it will give me contextual help in a separate window here. It does the same thing in the CAM wizard as well. So when I go into 3-axis milling and I'm on one of these pages and I highlight what is lace angle, it will give me a sort of like a help description. Oh, I think it's this button here. There we go. So when I highlight a number, it will give me a description of what I'm looking for with the CAM contextual help, just like we've had in the CAD side of things previously. All right, and then when I get to the 3-axis milling in my milling job that I have here, already created, all of this roughing and finishing in the pocket here, we can go in and backplot. Let's see, which do I want to do? I just want to do the basic facing operation on top here. And I'm going to expand the feature. I like to collapse everything so that it's not so cluttered here in the CAM tree. But I can click on the arrow next to the facing feature. It drops down if I want to reselect my geometry in the feature. And then if I want to highlight the toolpath or the operation of facing specifically, I can right-click on the operation and go to backplot. And I can see the tool here. One feature that I like here in version 38 is that it shows the tool direction arrow for each operation in the backplot now. So if I'm trying to plot points, or I'm reading the G code and trying to make sure the backplot here lines up with the G code, I'm not lost. It's showing me where the next step is going to be in the toolpath. So it's showing that it's going to plunge down first, and then when I hit the next arrow here for the next step, it's plunging down to the feed rate, plunging down to the first depth, and then the next step is going across in this direction. Sort of a small thing that you'll see as a new feature, but I think it can be really useful if you are plotting the G code, or you're trying to read the G code and see how it lines up in the backplot. You can easily see the direction of the cut and where it's going to go next. So that one's pretty useful, showing direction arrow for backplot. Robert asks, did the coordinate show up on the part more clearly than before? Let's take a look at that. Sometimes when I use BobCAD every day, sometimes I don't see differences like that. But yeah, let's take a look at it. So if I blank out the part file and I'm here at the CAD origin location, and then I show the part file and take a look at the CAM origin location, the work offset, I think it's pretty defined here. But that's a good point that we get into. The graphics in version 38 is going to be improved from version 37, as well as the toolpath algorithms. They update for every version, so you're going to get shorter calculation times and more improved toolpath functions, more improved toolpath in all of our milling operations. Lathe, wire EDM, all of those are going to be updated every time, so you get to cut down on calculating time in BobCAD and also cut down on cycle time at the machine with more improved toolpaths here. But yeah, that's a good point there. We get into mill 3-axis, boundary options, trimming criteria. And if you have the demo version of version 38, it's now on our website. So if you go to bobcadsupport.com, where you're at now, you can go to the downloads page up at the top. and you can download a free trial version of version 38 here so that you can follow along and see what we're looking at today. And also, if you're on the Advantage plan, then you get version 38 included with your Advantage plan, and you'd be able to download it from that website there and register it from there. So, yeah, where was I going with version 38? Under the downloads page, thought I had something else with BobCAD-support.com. No, I think that was it. That was it. So if you want to see all of our new features in version 38, other than just the top 10 here, we've gone through the first 5, and we'll be going through the second 5 next. If you want to see all the features that we're going over today and more, you can go to the top and go to File, go to Help, and go to BobCAD-CAM Help. This will open up in a new window. And over on the side here, there is a bunch of chapters, and you can click on What's New. You can see it right here. What's New, and then What's New in BobCAD V38. This is really useful in your other versions as well, because we come out with a service pack every few months to sort some things out, make some improvements, and under What's New in version 38, once we come out with the first service pack, you'll see what's new in service pack 1. So if there's some kind of issues you may be running into the software program, you can call us with tech support. We fix it in the new service pack, and it's shown up right here in what's new to see any changes. All right, so here's what's new in version 38, and we've got all the different topics here. As we mentioned, the new built-in CAM wizard. The CAM contextual help, as we mentioned. So you can highlight over anything, and it gives you a description of what these different cut patterns are for and things like that. CAD defaults, as we went over. Save default settings for all of your CAD functions. Component library, so that you can save and load components in here. In this example, there's a BobArt vectorization that you can import automatically. That could be pretty cool if you've got a logo that you want to import all the time for an engraving or anything like that. And then next we're getting into, I think it's this one here, new CAM toolpath parameters. So this is going to be under mill 3 axis and under the boundary options. So if we go to our advanced roughing feature here, we can go over to the, I believe it's under options for this one. So under options, you have an undercut option for roughing. You also have options for the boundaries here, setting tool outside, and also setting the cutting extents here. When we click on advanced, you can set the threshold value, percent of tool diameter, and these options here gives a better description here in the visual of what's new. You can see the old way. If you have your boundary set right on the edge of this surface, the center line of the tool is going to just end at the edge of the boundary. If we have from tool tip point to tool contact point, it's going to go to wherever the tool is contacting at that boundary. It's going to sort of overflow to the sides here and mill out everything else for that boundary that we have selected. So that's the best way to describe that one. You can extend out the boundary a little bit further so that your center line of tool isn't ending here and there's going to be extra material down at the bottom right here with this ball end mill. Your tool contact point will allow you to go along the sides to mill out a little bit further there. All right, next is rest finishing. I don't know if we have anything showing here for that. But anyway, rest finishing. It's going to be in a finish operation here. That's under options. And again, you can see tool tip point and also tool contact point. So it'll extend a little bit past these walls down into these areas here. We also have rest finishing that I can check off about halfway down here. And we can define it by our previous tool. So I can type in what my previous tool was, and it will calculate the areas the previous tool couldn't fit into with my stock and my 3D model here. And it will calculate just the tool path, exactly how much is remaining from the previous tool that we used and the stock remaining from that previous tool. So that is an option that we've had in here for a long time, the rest finishing option. Rest roughing in a roughing operation, rest finishing in a finish operation, also called rest machining. We have another option here, still been in BobCAD for a long time, the stock STL file. You can save a part file as an STL file, load it in right here, and tell the software, maybe you're working off of a casting or something like that, you can tell the software, okay, this is how much material is remaining, machine just the rest from where we left off there. This is a new option here though, by tool length. So I can also tell the software the tool length, and there's a good description of it right here if I can find it. Let's see, rest finishing. So we'll search for rest finishing. There we go. So rest finishing by previous tool length. The what's new here gives a great example here, is if my tool wasn't long enough to get into these areas here, then you can see that tool holder in the previous slide was going to hit the part, so we weren't able to get into these corners right here. We can give the software program all the information of the tool so that it will machine just those little areas that the previous tool couldn't fit into with the tool length as well. So now we have a tool length option in here also. All right. We could get into the stock STL option as well. I like showing this. This has been in BobCAD for a long time, but if you haven't seen it before, it can be really useful. If I go to milling the operation here, let's just do the roughing operations first. I'm going to go to my start simulation up at the top. I'm going to go to, oh, here's another one with my simulation. It's kind of hard to see with all these tabs over here turned on. My machine is turned on and things like that. I can close out of simulation, and I can open my simulation in a separate window so I can put it on a separate monitor by going to File, going to Settings, and going to CAM. I can change the simulation window from embedded to a separate window, hit Apply and OK. And now when I go into simulation, it's a separate window that I can maximize here. I could also drag it over to a separate window. So now I can multitask, right? I can go into my facing operation and change the depth of cut here. And then I can hit compute. Then I would just hit restart in simulation and then run it again. So I don't have to close out of simulation every time I make a change and reopen it. I can leave it open and just make those adjustments from there. That was one in, I want to say, version 37 that came out. So it's not a brand new one, just want to let you know, but it is one that is newer that I really like using in there to be able to multitask, right? You're programming and simulating sort of at the same time. So when we run through, these are all, hold on, let me just go through the roughing operation. So I'm doing my facing operation first, and then my roughing operation. So after the facing and roughing, I can go down to the bottom here of my simulation window. And the bottom right here, we have this tab labeled Cut Sim. Right here where my cursor is, right here at the very bottom. Click on Cut Sim, and I can click on this Save button labeled Save Stock. I can save this as an STL file. So this model right here in simulation, I've saved it as an STL model. I can go to my finish operation now and tell the software that this is the stock remaining. Again, when I go to Options, I go to Rest Finishing, Stock STL, and select Rest Stock STL. This is the stock that is remaining, the rest of it from my simulation right here. And then hit Compute, and it will compute the toolpath based on the stock that's remaining. So that can be really useful as well if you're working off of a casting, or if you've machined it from a different software program, or right here in BobCAD, you can save the STL file. You can load it into the rest machining option and be able to machine the rest of it from there. Again, that was in version 37, but version 38 now offers the tool length option, which is pretty cool. Be able to type in your tool length also, and if there was any collisions there that BobCAD would avoid, it would then machine the rest of it that it wasn't able to get to with that shorter tool. All right, so next is going to be Flatlands. We have some new options in here. Open up the Flatlands operation. All these posting options, setting up my tool. And then, so the Flatlands, a couple options in here would be optimal machining angle, just like we have in planar toolpath now, and outside in ordering enhancements. So the first one is optimal machining angle. That is found under the cut pattern here. Up at the top under patterns and parameters, I can go to parallel. If I highlight that one, we can see the machine flatlands will zigzag back and forth. And we can set the lace angle. So the angle direction of 0 would be going in the 3 o'clock position in this direction and go back and forth along the x-axis. If I set the lace angle to 90, it will go back and forth along the y-axis back and forth. And I can do anything between 0 and 360. For example, if I set it to 45, it'll do a 45-degree angle cut across the part here. Now, I don't have to really worry about that option. I can click on optimal machining angle, and it will calculate the machining angle usually based on lengthwise. So if it's a longer length this way, it will go across that way, across the surfaces, and same down into the pockets here. And then there's another option for offset. Again, that one is outside in ordering enhancements. So for all of these different levels of the flatlands, it's going to start from, as we see here, the outside here and work its way into the stock. And same with this one, it's going to start from the outside and work its way into the stock here. Another one in here is additional depths. So I can do multiple passes. If I don't want to just get down to this depth first and then do a second cut, I can first start 50 thou above this level, or whatever it is. If I set it to 10, for example. Let's say I want to do leave 10 thou on top of each of these top levels, and then I can do a finish pass on each level after the 10 thou remaining. So all those options are pretty cool there. We can zoom in and see that. 10 thou there, 10 thou in this area here as well. And then do an additional cut after that. Okay, so yeah, a bunch of options there in the flatlands that will help improve the tool paths. Again, starting from the outside, working its way in automatically from any opening. And also, if I want to do a depth step like that, very easy to do. and also the optimal machining angle, which again is also found in the advanced planer. If I go to advanced planer, and then go to patterns and parameters on the advanced planer, you will also see the lace angle direction right here, and also the optimal machining angle to let BobCAD calculate that machining angle for you automatically. Next couple, one we have mill 4-axis feature, and the next one we have a lathe 2-axis feature. So mill 4-axis, don't necessarily have a part file for this one. It's just looking at the option here, which is mill 4-axis step over optimization for wall finishing, which is right here. Okay, there we go. So if you can see my screen here, step over optimization for wall finishing. The rotary machining users can now benefit from optimized step over for walls, ensuring more consistent maximum step over on curved or slanted surfaces, improving precision. You can also adjust the minimum depth step, reducing the number of required toolpaths and increasing efficiency. Toolpaths are trimmed to focus only on necessary areas, minimizing unnecessary machining. So in our previous versions of BobCAD, you can see these flat, sort of this spiral in this part file. It would try to just sort of step over every time and would give us this weird stair-stepping look afterward. But this one is going back and forth along the flats and stepping down along the ridges of this spiral here. So it's going to give us a much better tool path than what we had before in the rotary operation that was found. I've got a basic one here, but you can take a look at it. Demo files and 4-axis rotary. And this is found in the 4-axis standard. So we could probably get away with a good step over in the 4-axis Pro with the advanced rough. And we can see it doesn't show us necessarily. But you can see like the 4-axis rotary. We also have 4-axis, there we go, advanced rough and advanced finish. So you can see in the advanced rough here, it is going to follow along these tapered walls, the boss that is in this part file, and just go right along the side walls of the boss. Instead of sort of going like in the rotary, it would just sort of do this, where it's just going to continually step over, and it wouldn't give us a great roughing or a great finish pass with the, I don't know why it's not showing the contextual help. Takes a second to load that in, I guess. But yeah, so again, the step over optimization for wall finishing. The step over in the 4-axis rotary before, it's good for part files like this that we can see. Just a continuous cylindrical shape, sort of like turning down the stock with a milling tool here as it comes down and goes across. We can see it in our simulation here. It's good for a cylindrical part like this, but for any bosses on top of the part, let's show it here under tool. There we go. Slow it down a bit. So yeah, it's just going to step over and then step down into the part like this. So it's good for a cylindrical shape like this in the mill 4-axis standard. And now if we had a boss on top of this shape here, it will follow along and keep that shape instead of just continuously stepping over like this. It's going to actually step over according to the geometry of the part file. Something like this spiral shape would be perfect for just stepping over, following that shape there instead of giving us some unwanted tool path. This one's going to be a lot more efficient and come out with if this is our finish pass, come out with a great finish, surface finish with that. All right, we're pretty much up on the top 10 features. We're on number 10 for a lathe 2-axis feature. So if you guys have any questions in the comment section, let me know. I want to thank everybody for viewing the event live today on top 10 new features in version 38. We do a webinar every other Wednesday. And so today is October 15th, and our next one is going to be October 29th. And that's going to be determined. We send a survey out to our customers to see what they would like to see in our webinar every other Wednesday at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. And I think the last one we did was Lathe. We did a couple other ones like on wire EDM and 3-axis milling. We did a couple CAD webinars recently. And you can view those after we're live today. You can view those on bobcadsupport.com and view all of the recorded ones. And I really like trying to get people into the live events today because you're able to ask any questions in the comments section, and I'm more than happy to answer anything that we have going forward with the inside of the live event today. So yeah, last one is going to be Lathe 2-axis. It now works with solids and surfaces. So I've got to pull up that file here, and it's on my downloads. That's Lathe. So here in this Lathe file, we used to have to select wireframe like this. So you'd have to go in, have your part file that you import. You have to have it, set up in that specific position, and then go into spun profile, have a new layer for wireframe to program it from. Now you don't have to do any of that. Now you can go to, and I'm just going to start from scratch here since we got plenty of time. We'll go to CAM, go to a new job, go to turning, select our machine. So same kind of workflow as in milling. We go to our stock wizard where we define our workpiece, define the stock that we're starting with. This is 4 inches for the OD and 4 inches for the length. And then I'll click OK. We're just going to be doing a turning on the OD, and then we're going to select the surfaces for our groove operation down here into that groove. All right, so I just right-click on Machine Setup 1. We go to Lathe Turning, and then I'm able to just select wireframe or the solid and surfaces, and just select the surfaces that I'm machining now instead of having to do any extra work with creating more geometry than I need to. Again, just selecting the surfaces that I'm programming for. Let's do these surfaces, but I'm not gonna try to get my tool down into the groove and on the back face here. I can do that by clicking OK. Selected my geometry. Now I go to the next page where I can turn on the OD here and also remove primary undercut. You can see the description of that. It's just going to run across that groove, and it's going to run across the back face there, so I don't try to dip the tool down into those areas. With that, remove primary undercut checked. Not a new feature there, just one that I normally highlight with newer customers if they run into that issue, something that people overlook very frequently, but a great option to be able to avoid any areas in the groove here. You can see it just cut right across like that. We'll do the groove operation next. And then it also cuts right across the back face area here so that it doesn't try to dip down into this area. Then we select our tool, our cut pattern, parameter, turn on collision detection here. Then we get to the finish tool, patterns, parameters, turning on collision detection, and then hit compute. Now this is what the backplot looks like in the roughing and finish operation. I can step through and I can see the current tool location, the direction of the cut, and I can also take a look at a newer feature. Again, this isn't in version 38 brand new, but this is one I like to show, It's a newer feature, so if I've got some customers in here looking at the webinar today that's on an older version, maybe you're in like 34 or 35, you haven't seen this yet. When I go to patterns and parameters, down here at the bottom, we have this checkbox labeled chip break. I can check that box. I can set the length of cut and retract distance here. So every 1/4 of an inch is going to retract 50 thou. And we can see that in the toolpath here. So after every 1/4 inch of cut, it will retract 50 thou and then go across like that, so that it doesn't have any built-up material as it goes across the stock there. This was a new one in either a 36 or 37, but I like to show it because you can set the length of cut. You can set a time interval. So after every 15 seconds as it cuts across, it will retract at that location. So here's 15 seconds worth of cutting, and then it retracts your retract distance. And then you also have length of chip here as well. So length of chip you can type in. It'll calculate how far across it has to go to retract after length of chip also. So the chip break one, not brand new, but it is a good one to highlight if you're on an older version like maybe 35 or something and it doesn't have that option. The new option in version 38 that's brand new is selecting solids and surfaces, like right-clicking on Machine Setup 1, going to Lathe Thread next. I'm sorry, not Thread. What am I doing? Going to Lathe Groove, select my geometry, which will be solids and surfaces, and selecting these 3 surfaces here for my groove. Clicking OK. Next page, we have turning on the OD. And all of those options as before, setting up the tool. It's got to be pretty small here for this groove. And then I'll hit compute. And we'll look at it from a top view, or like a side view here, I guess. And we can backplot it. Now, oops, the tool's not correct there. Let's use a different tool holder. So I go to the tool crib, change the tool holder here. There we go. Change the tool size and compute. Now, when I backplot it, you can see that it's trying to feed from the top of the stock right here. I want it to rapid down to this location and feed down into this groove, into this stock right here, because all of this has been turned, right? So I don't want to waste all that time feeding down into that area at each step. I can go to my very first page in the feature here for turning. And I am turning instead of from my original stock, I'm turning from my geometry I've selected of the surfaces there. So that is how you can limit those moves there. It's going to rapid right to this location, then feed down into that material, and then feed from there. So that's to save you time on turning operations as well. Again, not brand new. That's a newer feature, but it's great to see those small things that a lot of customers I notice overlook to be able to save you time at the machine. You don't have to feed down into the sort of air cutting there, right? All right. Let me know if you guys have any questions after we've gone over the top 10 new features in version 38. Just sort of a recap. We've got I'll look at what's new here. Just as a recap, we have our CAD defaults, saving your settings for all of your CAD functions how you want. Next is migrating these CAD default settings in the migration tool. And as Chuck asked on the migration tool, will it migrate the post processor? Yes, it will. It will migrate under migration here. It will migrate the post processor, machine file, to your tool library, all of those settings, either in an older version or in this version. You can migrate from one computer, export it, and import it up here. or migrate from your current PC from an older version to the newest version here. Yes, it will migrate your post processor there. Also, it will migrate the CAD default settings. Next is the component library. So if you have a drawing that you very frequently use, like this logo that we have here, you can save it from a drawing and load it in. And you can see this whole list of different drawings that we have saved that you can load into your part file from there, sort of saving it as and loading it as an assembly. So if you've got your vise that you want to save and load in, you can do that. In CAM, we have the new built-in CAM wizard. So you can see everything is sort of built into the software program on the side here instead of a separate window. Easier to find your part file, and as you're making changes, you can see the updated toolpath on your part file as you go through with this built-in CAM wizard. Backplot shows you the tool direction. So if I'm going, maybe if I'm going the opposite direction from here, it'll show me if it's going in this direction, or if I compute it and it's going in the opposite direction. Oh, it doesn't even show me. It didn't work correctly. Let's try this one. Oops. Yeah, so maybe if I'm going in the opposite direction with a different tool, it'll show me the direction of the cut to see if I'm going the right direction or not. And also it helps with the G code. When you're trying to review the G code there and make sure everything's going in the right direction, you can see what the next step is there in your G code as you're backplotting. 3-axis milling, you have new boundary options. So with the tool tip point as your boundary option, it just ends the tool path where your center line of tool is ending at the edge of the boundary. Tool contact point will go to the where the tool is contacting the surface and end at the edge of the boundary that way. So you don't have to really extend your tool path out, do a lot of manipulation with the boundary. You can just click a few buttons and then be able to extend your boundary from there. Rest finishing by previous tool length. I think that's found down here. Maybe. Tool length. Oops. There we go. So previous tool length. So if the tool is too short for your roughing operation or your previous tool, it will calculate the tool path based on where we left off from the previous operation with rest machining. Flatlands. I think we've got one in here for Flatlands to show you. It shows you every new one in here. So under Flatlands, we have the in Flatlands, we have optimal machining angle, and this one that we're seeing here as well, outside in ordering enhancements. So we're starting from the outside of the stock and work our way in. Mill 4-axis step-over optimization for wall finishing so that it will follow the contours of the part file. So it will follow the contours of the spiral shape here instead of just stepping over and leaving you with a lot of stair stepping. It will actually follow the contours and give you a great surface finish. And then lathe 2-axis, where you can work with a solid model, be able to select a groove like this to just select the surfaces right here and then turn down the stock from there. So those are my top 10 new features. If you go to version 38, go to File, Help, and BobCAD-CAM Help, you can see all of our new features here in what's new in version 38. And I want to say usually we come out with like over 200 different new features in every new version, including the toolpath algorithms. So if you update to the newest version, you're also getting quicker computing times in the software program itself, and also better toolpaths for shorter cycle times at the machine to cut your part more efficiently. All right. So yeah, if you guys have any more questions, please let me know in the comment section. I want to thank you guys again for viewing the live event today. The new features in version 38. Again, if you have any more questions with the newer version or anything else, you can call us at 727-489-0003. And you can also email us at support@bobcad.com. And I'll hang back for a minute or two, see if you guys have any more questions with version 38 or anything else in particular. We went over a couple of small things in Lathe and a couple of small things in milling to, some small things that customers tend to overlook. And that's what I like to do in the live events is showing you guys how to, get a more efficient toolpath, and any questions you may have. I like to answer them real quickly here in the comment section, so that you don't have to wait for a call back in tech support. You can ask them right here and now. James, USF College of Marine Science will be upgrading soon. That's awesome to hear. We're in Tampa, Florida, so we are just a quick drive from you guys. I went to USF myself, so that's really cool that we're able to, hopefully you guys can do like an in-house training or something like that, and check out our office and help you guys out with the software program. All right, cool. I don't see any other questions. Thank you guys for being engaged in the comments section. Like to see where you guys are at in the software program. More than willing to help in the live event so that you guys aren't stuck at all waiting on a call back for tech support. Like to help that way in the live event as well. And Bob asked, when will the V37 mid-year release become available? I'm not sure what the mid-year release pertains to. We've come out with a few service packs already. So if we go into version 37, I'll just open it just to see the latest build number and to see where to find that. If you're not on the latest release, right here on BobCAD-support.com, you can find all of the latest service packs there. I think we came out with one a few months ago, I want to say. Yeah, the newest service pack. I'll show you where to find the build number in your software program. In case you're not on the latest one, go ahead and update on our support site. So we go here to File, go to Help, and then right over here on the right-hand side where I am at, I'm blocking it, so let me move myself here. So up at the top right here, you'll see version number 37 and build 5527. That's the latest we have for version 37. And version 38, we're on 5765. Which is the one that we just released today. And you can find both of those latest service packs on BobCAD-support.com under downloads. All right, cool. I don't see any other questions. So thank you guys again for viewing the event live today. Hope to see you in the next webinar, which is going to be October 29th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. All right. Thank you. You guys have a great day there. See ya.